A very warm welcome to you, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. I am Olajumoke Olatunji. Some foundation members of the All Progressives Congress have urged Ondo State government to investigate the circumstances surrounding the death of a governorship aspirant in the state, Paul Akitedure. On the interview segment for today, we will be discussing how the federal government secured the release of Kaduna schoolchildren with the Director General, International Institute of Professional Security, Dr. Tony Ofoyetan, as our guest. Welcome to Politics Tonight, everyone. I'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. It's a 30-minute conversation tonight, so let's get straight into it. Tonight, we're shifting attention to Kaduna State, a state that holds the largest military formation in Nigeria, yet plagued by banditry. After 2 weeks in captivity, 137 abducted Kuriga schoolchildren have been rescued through the joint efforts of the military and local authorities. What we know now is that the released abductees are getting psychological support before being returned to their families. Tonight, let's get some insights into this matter with Dr. Tony Ofoyetan, Director General, International Institute of Professional Security. Doctor, good evening to you, sir. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Good evening, and thank you for having me. It's my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Right. It's so good to see you again as well. So we're glad that these innocent schoolchildren are back. But some experts have argued that their abductors came from Katsina and Zamfara states. And their argument is based on the vulnerability and porousness of Kuriga. Do you agree with that?
Well, of course, an average security professional cannot agree less. And the vulnerabilities are very obvious, as it were. And I'm sure that you would have seen this scenario playing out over and over again, the same script being acted every now and then. Even to the extent that even the numerical strength of the people that were abducted at initial stage were not even very clear until the issue of the release. At the level of abduction, we were told it was about 287 or thereabouts, but at the release, we were told there are 137 or thereabouts. And the governor is now very emphatic to the extent that, okay, these were actually the number of students that were abducted ab initio. So if you look at it, but basically, I see more of a business venture as it were now. And I think that it behoves on the government to come all out. Good enough that these children has been released. However, whether released, whatever, whether negotiated, whether ransom was paid, to me, it doesn't make any difference. The joy is that once these children are released. But in most cases, how it works at international level and in other crimes is that even peradventure, let us assume without considering that the 1 billion naira was paid. Now, what government will do is to ensure that you don't have the luxury of spending that money. You don't have such luxury. Now, once those kids are out of your custody, then the government knows what to do at that point in time. But if they keep succeeding, like you have the Dapchi issue, you have the Kankara issue, the Chibok girls are, up to today is still unresolved as it were. Now you are not talking of this Kaduna one. And of course, you know that within a space of a month or thereabouts, almost more than 400 people were kidnapped, or people were kidnapped in Kaduna, environ, and the like. Now it means that this is not a very big business, to the extent that the government, even when Mr. President is saying, I'm not going to pay ransom, you see high caliber people coming out to blackmail the government as if what the government is doing is not right. Meanwhile, if you pay ransom to the terrorists, what you have done is that you have empowered them the more. They will use that money to go and buy arms and ammunition to be able to do what? To be able to continue that dastardly act. There are different ways through which you can settle this matter. In some other client, you can even talk of prisoner swap and the like, just to get your children back. Then subsequently, you know what to do to rearrest those that have been swapped and all those stuff like that. But funding, this is an act of funding terrorism. And the government must be very conscious of that.
All right, Doctor, let's talk about Kuriga community for a second and some other ungoverned spaces like that. I mean, the analysts have said this particular school is easily accessible through Benengwari, and that's a community that is always susceptible to bandit attacks. Now that the students are back, my worry is that what happens to Kuriga community? How do we protect these communities, these ungoverned communities? How do we protect them?
Now, to protect the level of ungoverned space in the north is enormous, and because their land mass is something else. For example, Niger State as a state, the land mass is almost that of Western Nigeria, Southwest in Nigeria. You know, almost just a little less than the whole land mass, you know, in Southwest. So, and that's just one state. So you can see how challenging it could be at times to talk about such ungoverned space. And the same thing with many of these states in the north. I remember there was a time I went to Sokoto. In short, I crossed the border as if I was going to the next street. As if I was going to the next street. And you see people like that. We have the challenge of ungoverned space. We have the challenge of porosity of border. Now, both mixing together. But if you are talking of how do we solve this thing, it's not a rocket science. One, you have been able to identify that you have more than 2,000 illegal routes. You've been able to identify that the landmass is very big. So what do? You use the local hunters. You use the local vigilantes. Constitute them into a well-structured paramilitary organization. Have a rural security network. I've advocated for this long time ago, that the government should look at the possibility of setting up rural security network. Yet the government has to be able to ask NSCDC to take over the issue of protection of our mines and mineral resources and all those stuff like that. It's a good one. But what I was expecting is a holistic approach towards security, especially within the rural area, where you will involve the Obas, you involve the emirs and the serikis, you involve the local hunters, you involve the vigilantes. Then another area that the government is not harnessing very well, there are private security companies. In short, we have more than 6,000 of them in this country as we speak today, licensed and unlicensed. The private security industry is about the 5th largest industry in the country. The government is not using, if you are not going to use them for operations, why can't you harness them for intelligence purpose? Because they are in every nook and cranny of this country. Now, the Obas and the emirs, why don't you empower them for security purpose? Give them some little funds, fund in such a manner that they become responsible to any security challenge within their domain. I can assure you that when government does that type of thing.
But Doctor, are you saying this is not happening yet?
It's not happening the way it ought to. You see, we have this security in piecemeal. Yes, I agree that the present government, in fairness to the present government is looking at how to quickly resolve a lot of security challenges. I'm sure that was what also precipitated the idea of having these girls released, I think, within 11 days or thereabout, you know, from captivity, which to me, it's a very good one. It's a very good one. But it is not all encompassing as we speak. Look, who are those that are sponsoring terrorism? The government is not coming all out against them as we speak. And it's not supposed to be so. It's not enough to say you release the names of X and Z. Releasing their names is not the solution. Why not prosecute them? Who actually are those that are also sending the funds to them? You know, who are those that are their international collaborators? Why don't you dig deeper than that? Why don't you bring them and make them scapegoat? You've been able to release some names of individual and names of bureau de change and the like, but that's not the solution. That's not it. Now, what of the political class? Who in the National Assembly are accomplices? Who are the presidency are those that are giving, you know, the strategic information? Who are those in the military formation, Army, Navy, Air Force, Police, NSCDC, and the like, that are feeding terrorists with strategic information? I expect the government to do a holistic audit of all the security agencies in this country to be able to sever the tares from the weeds and be able to tailor, because you are having a situation where you have regular occurrences of ambushment and all those hit and targeting hard targets in this country by terrorists. Why? What gave them that bravado is the fact that they have insider information. The insider threat is too high. The government and security agencies should look at the possibility of reducing insider threat to the barest minimum. Look at all those that are in all these security agencies and ask strategic questions. Why was who in the service and in all the security agencies, who brought them in? Why did they bring them in? At what point in time were they brought in? What is the antecedent so far? Do they have any affinity or any nexus to any terrorist organization or any individual that is sympathetic to terrorism? Have they traveled to any of these terrorist-prone and radically prone countries in the world? Why have they been traveling there? You have to profile all your personnel. Nigeria has gotten to that level where we can no longer assume that everybody is innocent in the army, in the naval, or in the air force, or in the police. No, we are fighting against terrorism, which is cancerous. And if that is the case, then the government should come all out.
All right.
Now, those that are in the National Assembly, how many of them? Those people that are saying don't apply a kinetic, they look at non-kinetic approach. Why are they advocating? Is it because of that out of their conviction, or because they are speaking as Clipper said? These are things that government should be talking about. Those that are militias, associations, and all those organizations that are sympathetic to the cause of terrorism in this country.
All right,
government
Doctor.
should come all out and profile them.
Right. So I want us to also talk about the protection of our schools in rural communities. Take, for instance, Kuriga community. Are you on the side of those who have said, if the schools cannot be protected, shut them down?
That will fall, it will just align to the philosophy of Boko Haram, that, Western education is a sin. And that is what they want. They want it to close down.
So how do we protect these schools? How do we protect these schools?
One of the mandate of the Corps of Commissioners. The Corps of Commissioners is an arm of the Nigerian Legion. And it is the Nigerian Army that is superintending over Corps of Commissioners. One of their core mandates is school protection. Unfortunately and painfully, they are not executing that mandate because government is not giving them the required backing. If government is able to take that body, the Corps of Commissioners, and give them that required backing, good. Now the IGP has been able to create this wonderful initiative, which some of us applauded him for that wonderful initiative, which is called School Protection Initiative or something like that. Now, it's a good one. In short, it's awesome. However, he needs more personnel. He needs special funding for it. So the police formation should be able to look at the possibility of having, additional, because no matter how you say it, if the IGP did not get additional funds to be able to prosecute and to be able to execute this laudable idea, it will still be something that is theoretical. So they need more personnel, they need more equipment, they need funding, they need, all these things that will work together to ensure that schools are protected. Then there's the necessity for technological introduction in schools. We are talking of look, even drone can do the work of 10 soldiers, 20 soldiers. If you look at all these places, why don't you have drones that can even be doing area surveillance? Be manning surveillance in all these places without you even having physical personnel on ground. All you need to have on ground will just be a response team. If you have a drone center that is able to, maybe you have drone that is able to patrol 10, 20 schools in a day, and it's not going to cost you. Drone is electrically propelled. It's not going to cost you petrol or aviation fuel and all those stuff like that. And you are going to get a very good result. And all you need to is have response team. And you're able to look at, peradventure there is any eventuality, how many minutes will the response team be able to respond? Now, if the terrorists are aware that this thing patrols school, maybe local government by local government, and it is done on daily basis. Now, when you give the students the confidence, you give parents confidence, and you are also able to introduce sense of security within that community. Those parents that are afraid, and whether you like it or not, no matter what you say, will not want their children to go back to school again. When they see things like that, they will easily go back to school. Then another thing that makes it easy is that, you have a armed response team that if there's any eventuality, that armed response team have maybe like 5 minutes to be able to approach that particular location. Now, even if they shoot the drone, for example, let us even assume that the terrorists decide to shoot the drone. You already know that that is already a signal to tell you that a harm is about to happen in that locality. So the armed response team will be able to move in like almost immediately.
But
now,
doctor,
these are all variable possibilities and solutions.
But, pardon me, allow me comment here. Don't we have all of this in Kaduna State? I mean, if the presence of military institutions were to guarantee peace and protection, Kaduna State would have emerged as the most peaceful and protected states in Nigeria. There are no fewer than 13 military establishments spread across that state. What exactly is happening?
No, you see, when you talk about the military formation, understand the way the military works and security agencies work is that apart from protecting their own facility, which they deploy men to protect on daily basis, except for maybe once in a while hard target attacks by terrorists and the like, they will not do anything except they are asked to do something. Okay. So what you are expected to do is to stay at your beat or your location. If your commander or your commandant did not ask you to respond, you do not have the business of responding. And that is how it works, within the security formation. So it's not as if because you have 13 different security formations in Kaduna State, therefore the 13 of them are on patrol, the 13 of them are on operations every now and then. No, the primary responsibility of security in each of those states is that of the police. Now, the police has its own shortcoming in fairness to them, because you are talking of how equipped they are, how well funded they are. The whole police budget in the Federal Republic of Nigeria is not up to the budget of a county, not a state, not up to the budget of a county in the US. So if you look at it from that perspective, I can tell you very boldly that when they finish paying salaries, how much do they have left to be able to execute strategic projects and all those stuff like that? So the government itself should be able to come all out if the government is interested in security. But Kaduna has its own peculiarity because there's high level of religious restiveness in Kaduna between the northern Kaduna and the southern Kaduna, and it's a generational one between the Christians and the Muslims, and we cannot be pretentious about it. And it has evolved over the years. And because it has not been resolved, it actually escalated during the time of El-Rufai, especially the second time, if you remember, when it became a major issue. And now, El-Rufai, with due respect, was not able to manage the security situation in Kaduna very well, maybe because of his bias and the like. And that we can see the result today in Kaduna State. Hita Toto is becoming the governor. Kaduna was relatively peaceful. Yes, they've had their fair share of violence, but it was relatively peaceful. But for 8 years of Governor El-Rufai's stay in Kaduna State, he might have succeeded in many other areas, no doubt about it. But insecurity was a colossal failure in Kaduna, and this is what we see as spillover. Also in Kaduna State, don't forget that Kaduna is rich in gold. Kaduna is rich in mineral resources. So you are sure that there's illegal miners there. Now, NSCDC has been building up security team according to the mandate of Mr. President that they should go after criminals in mines and illegally mining our mineral resources. But the question is whether NSCDC has the capacity to be able to face these people that are sophisticated. They are armed to the teeth. They are well sponsored by foreigners that are interested in illegally mining our resources and all those stuff like that. So that's another discussion.
All right. So, Doctor, 2 more issues before we go tonight, and we have 3 minutes. So I'd like you to please kindly help me manage this time. Earlier you talked about Vigilante and the structural framework that should come with it. I'm asking this question because some people have criticized the framework used in recruiting members of Vigilantes. They claim some tribes are favored over others, which in turn affects their judgments. Is this in any way important or inimical to the goal for setting up Vigilantes?
No, I don't know if anybody is talking about it. Vigilante is a tribal thing. It's like community policing. There is no Igbo man that will come and do vigilante in the Yoruba land.
No. This is coming from, Doctor, this is coming from some northern stakeholders. They're asking for a proper framework in creating these vigilante groups.
No, it's one vigilante group. For example, you have the Vigilante Group of Nigeria. Now, it's a private initiative that cumulatively became an organization registered. I think they already have their act in National Assembly. What I expected is the government to take over that group because they already have a structure. In each state and in each local government, in each community, even in each ethnic group, they have their vigilante. And those people are citizens or indigenes of such places. And that is the way it works. And that is the way vigilante is structured. Vigilante is a community-based policing system. So the issue of talking about tribalism or ethnicity does not come at all. Except you want to talk about the leadership structure up there. That's a different ballgame entirely. But in terms of the operational methodology of vigilante, anybody that is talking about tribal sentiments and the like, I don't think you understand the formation of vigilante and how it works.
All right. So quickly, let me get your opinion about the erstwhile Binance executive. Can you authoritatively say that there was no collusion anywhere?
If the government did not believe there was collusion, the government would not have ordered for the arrest of the officer that was in charge of the protection of the Binance representative. So for government to order for the arrest, because a national embarrassment, in short, it's too embarrassing to hear that a man, the issue is not whether he's guilty or not. If somebody can escape that easy, that cheap, that pedestrian, for me, there's high level of connivance. And you are saying he went out with, is it another passport or how? The passport that he went out with, did it bear his name? If it's bearing his name, how did he get out, pass through the immigration without the immigration, the DSS, and all that were at the airport, knowing very well? If it's another passport bearing another person's name, how come his face is now not tallied? They are not able to recognize the face of a man that is criminally remanded or detained at that level. Now that becomes another thing entirely. Absolutely. As far as I am concerned, with my own little understanding, I think there's high level of hanky-panky game in his purported escape.
All right, thank you so much for your insights and brilliant perspective as always. I've been speaking with the Director General, International Institute of Professional Security, Dr. Tony Ofoyetan. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, sir.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.